I'm happy to welcome everyone. I think I probably have an idea of everyone who's here, but if I don't know you, I'm Jen Marsden. I'm the College and Career Specialist here at Ashland High School, and I'm really glad you can join us.
And I will introduce myself. My name is Lee Sosin, and I am one of the co-founders, along with Seth Kessler, who you probably also see on your screen, of a company called GapWell. And we're going to talk a little bit about GapWell, but we're really going to focus on helping you better support your teens or be a teen who is better supported on their journey from high school to career, high school to college. And to help have that conversation, we wanted to welcome part of the GapWell extended family, Olivia Bulow, who is, well, Olivia, why don't I let you introduce yourself and tell everybody where you go to school, what year you are, what your situation is.
Sounds good. So I am a senior at the University of Oregon, and I'm originally from Los Angeles. This is my fourth year at Oregon, and I'm studying sports business and psychology. Like Lee said, I've been doing the GapWell guide for like a year now, making videos and posting them on their website to help younger college students.
Very cool. So welcome everybody. You know, the theme of the night is from graduation to greatness, or more specifically, how do we look in a different way at this incredibly important transition, which is the transition from high school to college. And I think we have on the call parents of college-bound students. We may have some college-bound students themselves in the audience. We have administrators in the audience. So we have lots of people who bring lots of different perspectives. But this is what we want to focus on. And I'm gonna sort of give you a sneak peek of what to expect. Olivia and I are going to be your hosts for the evening. And we're really going to do sort of split the conversation into three sections. First, we're going to talk a little bit about what that first year on campus is like today, because I am the parent of one person who has already graduated college and two current college students. So I've been through it 3 times. Seth has 2 kids, one who's already in college and one who's about to go to college. He's a senior. Olivia's there to give her perspective as a student, but this is an incredibly important transition, and doing it right can make all the difference. And that's really what we want to focus on. So we're going to do 3 things. We're going to first have a conversation about why is the first year so different today than for the parents on the call, the way we remember it. So we're going to level set about what students are experiencing now in their first year on campus, which is really important because it's hard to support someone if you don't really understand what they're going through. Then we're going to talk about what can happen over the next few months before the student leaves the house, right? While your child is still in your house, or while you're still in your parents' house if you're a student. What needs to happen now to get you set up for more success at school that first year? And then the third section is going to be, okay, now you're off at college, your teen is off at college. How do you better support them during that first year? So it's level setting, then it's about what can we do right now before they leave the nest, then what do we do once they're there? And how do we help support them to have a better growth experience and a more confident experience that first year? So we're going to talk a lot about student success. And I think that that's a term that we all throw around in a lot of different ways, but as just something to kick things off, why don't we go into the chat if you can? And what I'd like everybody to do is write down in the chat as best you can your version of success for first year of college. First year of college, how do you think about success? What does success mean? What should success mean for a student on their first year on campus? And if we could just have some folks write your thoughts in. There's no wrong answers. Every answer is a right answer, so no pressure. See, build self-confidence, engagement academically and socially. Very important. Becoming successful at managing their time. That is a huge topic that we talk about all the time at GapWell. Maintains grades, engages in extracurriculars, meets friends, has fun. All of the above. No loans obtained, full ride, good grades, and involved in many curricular activities and clubs. Seth appreciates that one more than anyone. He likes the no loans obtained, full ride. Feels comfortable engaging with new experiences, made it to the end of the year happiness and successful in class, isn't afraid to call home if things go sideways. Great point. Sense of safety, being able to manage anxiety, not becoming overwhelmed, time management, able to connect socially, improve it. Okay, these are amazing, amazing. Thank you all for sharing. I will say that already this group is off to a good start with great participation. And we really appreciate that. We spend a lot of time and you'll hear a lot about GapWell and Olivia is a contributor. And so we're gonna ask her, Olivia, when you picture yourself a senior in high school 4 years ago, thinking about college, what were you hoping that your first year would be like?
I was definitely hoping that I would find a community and find a group of people that I got along with and that would become friends. And I was also hoping that I would be able to find classes that were interesting and engaging and force me to like think more critically. And then the last thing would be just to like grow up and become an adult and do things on my own and become more mature. Those are the three things.
And how successful were you in those three things your freshman year?
Freshman year, I semi-successful, and 4 years, I would say I've been successful.
That's very good. You certainly have won us over. So we have, as I mentioned, you'll hear a lot about GapWell. That's our company, and that's, we have an overall mission to help young adults on their journey from high school to career. And for many students, college is an important part of that. We're not college counselors. We don't help people get into college, but we do focus a lot on student success and that critical first year. And when we think about success, and again, there are no right answers. In fact, the answers that you guys put in the chat are so in line with what our older students like Olivia are making content about for our younger students: time management, fitting in socially, handling things, dealing with anxiety, personal growth. Like, these are the topics. And so when we think about it, we sort of came up with the 3 C's, I call it, right? We want our students, their first year, to feel more capable, more comfortable, and more confident, right? We want to give them the skills that they need to overcome adversity, to manage their time, manage their money, eat healthy, go to sleep, make friends, deal with professors and roommates and all that stuff. So we want to give them those skills, make them feel more capable, make them feel more comfortable, like there's a sense of belonging, that this is where they belong, and more confident. Obviously, confident is knowing that you have what it takes to navigate the world and that you can really put your best self out there. So that's how we define success the first year, and we're going to talk a lot about it. But as I mentioned, 3 sections. First section is all about sort of redefining what that first year experience is. And so, Olivia, I'm gonna, before I talk about some of our survey results of what's going on across the country, you're here, you're the guinea pig, you're the student. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, did you experience any challenges your first year?
Yeah, I'll preface by saying that my first year in school was the first year after kind of being home for almost 2 years after COVID. And so that was a huge change for me. And I think for everybody around me, was just being out in the world and doing things. So that was sort of like a baseline challenge for everyone, I would say. But some of the other challenges, like I didn't know anybody. I felt lonely. I didn't have anyone to go to, you know, go to the gym with, go on a hike with, to go eat dinner with. Like, you just feel a little bit like you haven't found your place, especially right at the beginning. So that was a big challenge for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, a lot of people, when they think about high school, so we did a survey at GapWell, and we had over 1,000 respondents from representing over 100 colleges and universities, big, small, state schools, private schools, you name it, 100 universities represented. And it was all about asking students and the parents of students who are current college students to look back at their first year and what that experience was like. And the results were really surprising for us. And there were a few big takeaways that we're going to share and help shape how we think about this first year success. But I want to just, again, to level set, I want to help some parents that are on the call. And this is not for the students who are on the call. This is not meant to scare you at all. But it's a tricky year. It's a tricky year. So 82% of students who responded to that survey said that they experienced a lot of stress their first year. Only 32, so less than a third, said that they had confidence day one, right? They didn't enter with a lot of confidence. Only 40% said they were able to navigate socially on day one, right? There's a huge learning curve. It's not that they're not able to, it's that when they show up, there's a huge learning curve ahead of them. And there was, you know, we asked about, you know, did you ever have a moment when you felt like you were at the wrong school? More than 60% said, yes, I had those thoughts. Maybe I'm at the wrong place, right? I'm struggling. I can't make friends. I'm having a hard time. And it's really interesting that, especially on the stress side, it did not matter if someone said they felt comfortable academically or socially. Everybody had certain pieces of the puzzle that caused them stress, they made them feel like they couldn't handle adversity, that sort of thing. So it is a very destabilizing experience. And one of the things that I think came out more, that was more than anything, and if you're a parent on this call, your kids may not mention this to you, I didn't realize it, which is how hard it is for young adults to make friends their first year. Loneliness is a big issue on college campuses. And I'll just tell you really quickly, when I went to go visit my son, Parents Weekend he goes to University of Colorado in Boulder, and we're walking to his dorm room, down his dorm, the hallway. It was like walking down the hallway of a hotel. Every door was closed. And if you're a parent on this call, you remember being in college and every door was open because there were no cell phones, there was no social media. Like, the only way for us to meet each other was keep your door open, and you just met people. It was so easy. And so the social aspect is really hard for a lot of young people today, which is why it's so important to support them in different ways than we needed support when we were starting out. Does that resonate with you, Olivia?
Definitely, absolutely. My parents had the same experience walking in my dorm and saying, "Hey, open your door." I said, "We are not allowed to open our doors." Um, so that's definitely true. But it's hard to make friends and meet people. But my advice would be to go to some of those cheesy first week, first month activities, because everybody's in the same boat, and that everybody wants to make friends, but nobody knows how. And some of those silly activities that you're like, I'm not gonna have a good time. This is stupid. Were some of the best ways to actually meet people.
It's really interesting because part of the things that when we did this big survey, and the survey really governs a lot of the insights that we got from doing this survey, by doing this primary research that we did with this group of students, 1,000 respondents, as I said. The students said they needed help. Looking back at their freshman year, they needed help in almost every aspect except how to take a test, right? I know how to take a test. I took Spanish in high school. I know how to take Spanish in college. I took calculus in high school. I know how to take math classes in college. That's not where I need help. I don't know how to talk to a professor. I don't know how to deal with a roommate. I don't know how to make a friend. I don't know how to juggle my schedule. I don't know how to manage my time. I don't know how to manage my money. I don't know. Like the list went on and on and on and on. And a lot of this is the natural growth of young adults into adults. But what we asked them really specifically, and the reason why Olivia is on this call, is we said to them, okay, you say you need help in all of these areas. Whose help do you want? Do you want help and advice from your parents? You want help and advice from the university? You want help and advice from social media? Where do you want help from? How do you want to get this help? And the number one answer, 93%, said older students. And when we heard that, we changed everything that we were thinking about this journey, and we partnered with young adults like Olivia at college campuses across the country to give advice, the advice they wish they had their first year on campus, about how to manage it and how to thrive. And it's been phenomenally successful. So with that in mind, we're going to be asking Olivia for lots of advice and sharing it along the way. So I mentioned, so the level set is first year, very challenging. It is socially challenging. It is challenging. It's probably less challenging academically. I feel like young adults that we deal with are pretty savvy academically. Some people it's challenging academically. For a lot of people, though, the stresses come from other areas. And as parents, we need to understand that, right? We need to understand it's not just how are you doing in your classes. It's, are you getting sleep? You know, are you making friends? Have you joined clubs? These are the questions, and we'll talk about that in a second. So it is now graduation time. I don't know when Ashland's graduation is happening, but between graduation and packing up the car or packing up the suitcases and going on Dormify and buying all the bedding and all that stuff, you've got time, right? And this is crucial time to, as a parent and as a student, to have important conversations and to prepare yourself to leave the nest, right? So one of the most important things, so we're going to walk through a few sort of like really important things that you need to do. One of the most important things that you need to do as a parent is normalize the idea with your teen that not every day is going to be the best 4 years of their life. If you are, if you are an average teenager, your parents probably met their best friends in college. All they remember are their good old days. Everything was awesome, which is not the case, by the way. We all had issues and struggles and worked really hard in college. We had good days and bad days, but we don't remember the bad days, right? It's all rose-colored glasses. And what we've done to the detriment of our children is we've painted this picture of college that it's the best. Every day is the best. You're going to have the best time. You're going to make the best friends. You're going to have the most laughs. And that is not reality. And we know it's not reality, but it's especially not reality now. So one of the most important things you can do is let them know that this is like every other day of your life, which is some days are going to be great and some days are going to be hard. Sometimes you're going to feel amazing and sometimes you're not going to feel so great. And normalizing that situation is probably the best thing you could do, so that when they walk on campus and they hit that first roadblock, or they don't get in the classes they want, or they don't get accepted to the sorority they want to go to, or anything else happens that goes wrong, they don't feel like, oh my God, maybe I'm in the wrong place. This is it's not supposed to be this way. Yes, it is supposed to be that way, right? And part of your growth is learning how to thrive in an environment that's always changing. So Olivia, how does that sit with you?
I agree. I think even freshman year through now is, you're going to have moments that I remember as really high, like when we beat Ohio State. And we're going to have normal days like, I do badly on an assignment, or, I mess up and I'm late to something and it ruins the rest of my day. And it's normal. And I feel like recognizing that everybody's going through that and experiencing bad days and good days is super important to like recognize.
Yeah, it really is. And as parents, or even if you're a student on this call, ask your parents, like, tell me about, like what didn't go right. It's important that you get a realistic view, because that's how you're going to enjoy it more. Because when things go wrong, you'll be like, yep, I knew this was going to happen. I knew there'd be tough days. So you want to make sure you do that. And that's number one. Normalize this idea that this is life, and curveballs happen and bad days happen, and that's okay. It's normal. It's normal. The second thing you can do before your student leaves the nest is to help them develop some life skills that they're going to need in college. Okay. The number one thing is how to handle curveballs, how to solve problems, right? How to communicate with adults. So one of the things we say is, every kid probably needs to have multiple doctor's appointments, at least one doctor's appointment and one dentist appointment before they leave, right? Have your kid make the appointment. Let them get some experience talking to adults, making those appointments, because when they're sick on campus and they go to the health center and the health center says, yeah, I know you're not feeling well, but we're sort of booked up. Maybe you can come back in a few days. They need to be able to advocate themselves and understand what it is to speak into a grown-up's world and say, no, I need a strep test now. I'm not feeling well now. I can't come back in 3 days. I need it right now. So, letting them start now taking responsibility for some of those adult things it can be really beneficial. Olivia, did you have any experiences on campus where you felt overwhelmed or had to advocate yourself in an adult world that you were either prepared for or not prepared for?
Health center is classic example. I was sick so much freshman year. I think just living in the dorms with everybody else. But yeah, I had to make myself a health center appointment. I had to, make sure that they were open. I had to call them ahead of time and say, this is my problem. Can you confirm I have an appointment? I'm going to show up at this time. I don't have COVID. I don't have symptoms. I promise I'm going to come, whatever. So that's like, I definitely have had that experience.
It's really important. And I will say, as a parent of 3, like, some of my kids are better at this than others. I have one child who's like, I don't know what to do. And the other one's, the youngest, who clearly was born into a dog-eat-dog world. She's like, yeah, I called the health center. I made an appointment. I went there. I picked up my prescription. I did this. I did that. Like, so every kid's different. You got to, know your kids, but really important to get them started on that journey. I'll just go through a couple of things, other things really quickly. If your child gets allowance and you give them allowance every week, switch it to once a month, or give them a lump sum at the beginning of the summer. Let them start to learn how to manage a budget. Managing money is really important, and they need to get experience doing it. Talk to your kids. We've actually created, with a renowned child psychiatrist, the 10 conversations every parent should have with their teen before they leave for college. And we will email that around to everybody who registered for this call afterwards. So look at your email for it. We're going to send it around. It'll be within the next, either tonight or by tomorrow at the latest. You'll get that in your inbox. It's great because it's not just which conversations to have, but it's also how to have them. We had, like I said, we work with a renowned child psychiatrist to help put better, like, some advice on how to have a good conversation with your teen. So we talked about increasing responsibility. Obviously, there's basic skills. Teach them how to do laundry, nutrition, how to get a good night's sleep. Hopefully they're, know how to do that. One of the things that's really, what I found was interesting, is set some guidelines on levels of communication. Like, if you're expecting your child to call you every day and they think once a week is enough, it's going to cause strife. So have a conversation, like, what's appropriate, what's not, what do we expect from you, that sort of thing. If your child is a bookworm, talk to them about joining clubs. If your child is a party animal, talk to them about going to classes. Like, I don't have to tell you all that, but probably the most important thing, and someone put it in the chat during the sort of chat about success, is time management. It is, without a doubt, I would say, so we'll talk a little bit about the GapWell guide in a little bit, but we ask our student contributors, and they come from colleges all around the country, to come up with their own ideas on what is the advice they wish they had, right? And then they make videos about it and we push it out to the students. The two most popular topics, these are now older students, upperclassmen, looking down and saying, what do I wish I was better at my freshman year? Two most popular topics in the first 2 months of school: making friends, managing their time. That's it. So get your team up on Google Calendar or iCal, right? Not a paper calendar, not something where they're carrying it around, but something that syncs from their phone to their laptop to their tablet, right? Where show them how to make recurring appointments for their class schedule. Show them how to, teach them how to build a calendar that they can then use to run their life. It will make things so much easier. So much easier. Probably the most important thing you can do over the summer is get them set up in managing their time. Okay, Olivia, anything else that I didn't miss that's sort of like over the summer things to do?
Something that was helpful for me was I went with my mom and we made a shared notes app of all the recipes, like my favorite things that we make at home. And that way I don't have to call her every time I want to make something. Have it in the notes app.
That's nice. That's nice. That's a great idea. So one quick, so Olivia, Seth wanted to jump in with a question. So of the things that we just went through or other things you're thinking of, what life skills did you feel were most important to your success when you arrived on campus? Like looking back, what were the skills either you had or you wish you had your first few months on campus?
Skills, I made a list of skills I wish I had. One of them was definitely like I played sports all throughout high school and I was so used to like having things scheduled for me in terms of like I knew I had to go to school for 8 hours a day. I knew I had to go to soccer practice after that. So one of the hardest things that I had to do was fill my time. It wasn't necessarily about managing all sort of different commitments. It's about finding things to fill my day because I had so much extra time compared to, how busy I was in high school. And slowly adding things in was one of the things that made me that helped me make friends when I joined a club that was, sports business club. My interests aligned with everybody in that club. And then I figure out how to make a routine for myself of going to the gym or going for a run or making my meals. Those are the kinds of things that helped me be successful.
Fantastic. Okay, so that is the summer. Now let's pivot for a second, and well, actually, I'm gonna bring up one thing that we've done to help. I mentioned the 10 conversations. The other piece is we've developed a college crash course, which is an on-demand video series. And it's bundled with the GapWell guide, which Olivia is a contributor to. But I just we'll talk about that at the end, but I wanted to let you know that there's in addition to the conversations you should have, we've developed a curriculum of these things that are about time management, health and wellness, making friends, dealing with roommates, all the kind of foundational knowledge that students should have before they step foot on campus. Because what we realized is that even though we're dripping out week after week to subscribers, all this great advice from older students, there's a bunch of stuff they need to know before they even step foot on campus. And we don't want them to wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks before, that video shows up in their feed. So we intentionally built this out based on all of our interactions with students and everything that we know so far, and working with Dr. Silverman, the child psychiatrist that I mentioned, to sort of build a foundation of skills and advice that students should have before they even step foot on campus. So that's another thing that can happen over the summer. Okay, let's pivot. Now you're on campus. You're there. As a parent, I'm wondering what is going on with my child. How do I support them? How do I show up in a better way, but also let them, I want them to grow, but I also want to be there for them. Did you have any, what were the main things, Olivia, that during that first year, what was your relationship with your parents, I guess, is a good question to ask. Like that level of support, did you feel like you were leaning on them too much, not enough? Were they overbearing? Like, what was that like?
We had talked about it over the summer, like how you mentioned. We said we're going to call as a family, all four of us, at least once a week. And then outside of that, I did not want them to call me because I was like, I'm gonna feel like you need me, you want to talk to me. But I called them probably like every day. So it wasn't it wasn't as if I wasn't talking to them. I would say I definitely relied on them too much freshman year. I was too used to calling them when I needed to, I need to send an email. Can you help me write this email? I need to make an appointment for something. Can you just sit with me on the phone while I, find the phone number to call? I was definitely doing a lot of that freshman year. Um, and I think I had a good relationship with my family, but I was from where I sit now relying on them far too much.
That's really, I mean, that I think is a very wise response. But it's hard when you are, we are all, even as adults, right? We're all guilty of, the phone is so accessible and texting is so accessible that it's so easy to say, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And we do it to each other, as adults, even because help is always so close. And I think it's the number one piece of advice that we give parents is when your your freshman texts you and says, what should I do? The best response is, well, what do you think you should do? Right? How would you solve the problem? I have an idea, but what do you think you should do? Right? We want them to start developing that skill set where they start thinking, and not just thinking about the solution, but believing that they have the solution. Right? And maybe it's not how I would solve the problem, but it's more important that they understand that they have the power to solve a problem. And obviously, depending on the level of crises, I mean, I know parents who get calls, hey, I'm in the ER. Like, obviously, it's not like, what do you think you should do in the ER? Like, obviously, there's levels, but on the day-to-day stuff, hey, I think I'm falling behind or whatever. What do you think you should do? What does the school have for you? Is there a health center? Is there a place you can go? Is there a writing center? What do you think you should do? And try to help them come up with their own ideas. There's one other thing that I wanted to well, mention is this sort of nature of setting up a safe space. We didn't talk about it it's in the 10 conversations document, but I just wanted to bring it up, which is that there will be times, I would imagine, for most parents during the 4 years that your kid is off at school, that they have to call you up and give you bad news. I failed a test. I'm failing a class. I'm sick. Something happened, whatever. You have to create a safe space in advance so that so that they feel comfortable saying, I need to tell you something. You may be upset, but I have to tell this to you. And you talk to them about how to go about that before the crisis happens, right? Students, Seth and I worked with a professor who spent his entire career talking about student success. And he told us two things that really helped us shape how we help kids. Number one, he said, students don't ask for help until it's a crisis. So you can't wait for them to ask for help. So that's why we push our content out to their phones every week without them asking for it. And the other thing, one was they don't ask for help for the crisis, and the second was you have to you have to be proactive about it, and so the idea is, if you are proactive about this and you create that safe space for them to tell you bad news, then you will be in much better shape. Okay, so not texting a response right away or texting back, what do you think you should do? Super important. Couple more things, and then we're going to open up to Q&A, and I really want to get some Q&A going because I feel like I've been talking a lot. One of the things that you can do is is not respond to a text right away. It's okay, right? You have, to give them space to think about things, to figure things out on their own, to try to help them solve their own problems. Super important. The other thing I mentioned, non-judgmental communication, setting that up. Check in on, like, have meaningful, don't just say, well, what's going on with class, ask about other aspects of their life, right? Because life is not just one thing, it's lots of different things. And as you heard in the beginning, the social aspect of college is the source of a lot of stress for a lot of college students. So before they go off, talk about, like, how are you going to meet people, right? Join clubs. Don't just go after clubs where there is people who get in and people who don't get in, right? You also have to join clubs where everybody gets in. You also have to, like, are you making friends? Tell me about this friend. Tell me about the clubs you're in. What are you doing for socially? Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you having 3 meals a day? These are important questions to make sure your kid is healthy. Olivia, is there anything that any, like, important questions that you think parents should be asking their kids that first year?
Definitely, are you eating 3 meals a day? And, I've had a couple of friends who have had problems with that, and I think having their parents ask them if they're eating 3 meals a day would have been helpful.
I am listen carefully when you speak to your kids, because sometimes they have things they need to tell you that they don't say out loud, right? And you have to listen closely, because there's always something happening, or oftentimes something below the surface. If you are the parent of a boy, I'll tell you something that you probably need to be aware of, which is sports betting. Sports betting is massive on college campuses, and you need to be aware of that and have a conversation with your kids before they go off, because they're over 18, and they can, I believe, sign up for a lot of these. And some of them, I think you have to be 21, but they figure out a way, and sports betting is rampant on college campuses. And we've heard some horror stories about kids who, run up huge debt. They have to have their parents bail them out. They have to, we've heard of stories of kids who have to leave school. Like, be aware of sports gambling and gambling in general on college campuses. The other thing, real quickly, because then we're going to go, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about GapWell and go to some Q&A. The other thing I will advise everybody in this call, which if you don't know, there's a company out there called Mama Bear. And what Mama Bear does is, I just thought of it because I mentioned that your kids are now 18. So once your kids turn 18, obviously they're adults, which also means that if something happens to them, God forbid, and they go to the hospital or they go to a doctor, the hospital is not allowed to share with you what's going on. These are adults now. So the way you combat that, there's a company called Mama Bear, and they have forms that you fill out, and then take photographs of them, keep it on your phone, have your kid keep it on their phone. And they give you basically permission to be a healthcare advocate for them. It's really, really important. I would highly recommend it. Obviously, we have no affiliation with that company, but as a parent, it's something that we were advised to do, and I'm really grateful that we did. And so really important to take care of that paperwork so that you can still be a participant in the health and well-being of your child when they're away from you. Okay. So the last thing I want to do before we open up for Q&A is, one of the things that we're just talking about is, how do you support your student during that first year, that pivotal first year, that incredibly sometimes challenging transitional year, as they go from being a high school student living under your roof to being on their own and dealing with a lot of the challenges that Olivia mentioned. And what we did, and as I mentioned, we did all this research and we wanted to figure out how to best help, how do we best help during our kids and the kids that we care about during this pivotal year. And I mentioned that, we came, from the survey, we realized that the number one source of advice that students want, 93%, older students. So it makes perfect sense, right? They don't want to hear from the university. The university ends up replacing the parents as the annoying authority figure. Luckily, parents came in second. So as a parent, I'm kind of happy about that, but it was a real distant second. Also, luckily, social media wasn't the top of the list, because I think even though our kids spend tons of time on social media, they know that it's phony and it's fake and it's not real, and people don't share real thoughts and feelings. What they said was, I want to get advice from the kids who are 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ahead of me, who've just been through this. They know what it's like to be in my shoes. They've dealt with these same issues. That's who I want to hear from. So what we did when we heard that was we changed everything. All of the advice, obviously it's vetted, but comes from students like Olivia, students who are articulate, they're wise, they've learned stuff, and they want to give back. And so what the GapWell guide does, it's a subscription service. It is less than the cost of textbooks. It is far less than the cost of tuition, and less than 1 hour of therapy. But it's a subscription, and it shows up on our subscribers' phones every week. They just get it texted to them. And when they open up their phone, there's a text message there with 5 to 6 headlines of the videos that were launched that week. And it covers everything from academics, social, personal growth, career. And a lot of it is students like Olivia saying, well, here's what happened when I failed my first test. Here's what happened when I didn't get into the sorority I wanted to get into. Or here's this hack, this studying hack that I figured out that changed my life, right? And I want to share it with you. And every video is from an older student who is giving personal advice, and it ends with encouragement. It ends with them saying, and Olivia will tell you, you've got this. That's our catchphrase, right? You've got this. You can do it. You're going to be great. Because the number one thing that students need to hear for their mental health and for their confidence is, yeah, that happens. It's normal. It happens to a lot of us. You'll be fine. Just like when we were new parents, and you're worried about what, is this and an experienced parent says to you, no, that's normal. That happens. It's so reassuring. And so, Olivia, do you remember some of the videos you made for the GapWell guide?
Yeah, I remember some of them. I remember like watching the videos myself. I was like, okay, great. These are going to be kids my age. We're all going to have a similar experience. But actually listening to the advice and the experiences of other people that were my age was very validating, and it made me feel like, oh, I know everybody experiences this, but I have real evidence now that everybody experiences this. And it was very validating, and it made me more open to like sharing my own experiences. Like I talked about in a video, I'm a sports business major, so there's 15% of the class is probably girls out of the whole major. So I have a lot of classes that are group projects where I'm the only girl in the project. And so I made a video about how do I deal with that? How did I find my voice in doing these projects and in this major, and my real experience. And so watching my video and other videos like it, I feel like was very validating, and made me feel like I didn't have to compare myself to other people, because we're all kind of going through our own version of the same experience.
It's so funny you should say about comparing yourself to other people. So not the number one, but one of the most important pieces of feedback that we got early on was someone said the word vulnerable. And it was so different than social media, because in social media, the people that you're looking at, their life is perfect, right? Everything's perfect. Oh, this school's the best. And this is also part of the reason why there's so much sort of like a dysfunctional situation going on campus, because they go on social media and they see their friends or at these other schools, and they're always having the best time, and they're always at party. And we know it's not real, right? We know it's not real, but there's so much comparison. And so what we heard was that because it's not social media, because this is basically a closed group, the students who are making the videos are vulnerable. They say, this happened to me, right? I didn't get onto the team. I failed my first test. I felt homesick. My boyfriend broke up with me, or whatever it is. And they're telling personal stories, and it's incredibly inspiring to the people who are listening to say, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person who hasn't found their people yet, and everybody else looks like they have found their people. So Olivia's been an amazing contributor for us, and we have folks from Miami and Harvard and Georgetown and Wisconsin and Michigan and you name it. So it's been really great. Okay, so with that plug, I will end with one last thing, which is that as a thank you to Ashland for inviting us on, we created a special discount code. Not surprisingly, the discount code is Ashland. But if you go on GapWellGuide.com, Seth is going to put the link in the chat, GapWellGuide.com. Or if you go to GapWellGuide.com/bundle, which is the bundle where we have put both a year-long subscription to the GapWell Guide. So it's more than 170 videos. It happens every week. Plus the college crash course that I mentioned, all bundled together, all for less than the price of textbooks. And you can use the code Ashland, and it's a special discount for everybody on this call. Okay, so with that said, we've got about 15 minutes left by my clock. I will open it up for questions, and feel free to write a question that you have in the chat. The question can be for me, for Seth, for Olivia. Seth, did I miss anything?
No, I just have a whole bunch of questions for Olivia. This is a real treat for us because we have about 25 awesome content contributors just like Olivia, but Olivia was the very first one to actually be put on the spot in front of an actual live audience to get asked questions. And as a parent of a junior at NYU and a college-bound high school senior, getting to ask Olivia questions and not having her roll her eyes and say, "Dad, stop bothering me," is kind of refreshing. But Olivia, I'd be curious while we're waiting for other people to throw some questions at you. Are you prolific on social media?
No, I am not a social media poster, and I will say I would not post the videos I post on GapWell on social media. I wouldn't.
And that's why I was going to ask you is my impression, based on what I know about you, is you're like in a lot of our guides, they're very happy to share advice to younger students. So I'm guessing if someone from one of your clubs or your major walked up to you and said, "Hey, you're in my major, can I ask you a few questions?" Somebody knows you. Like, I imagine you are helpful.
Yes.
But
I hope
how did it feel when you first sort of came onto the team and were asked to share personal experiences? And some of them aren't things you're like advertising to the world, but they're very real. Like, how did it feel knowing that there's younger students who you don't know who are relying on you for advice and learning from your experiences and hearing about what mistakes you made or things that went wrong? I mean, how was that for you?
It did feel like a very safe place to put myself out there, to be honest. I don't know if I can quite describe why, but it does, and it did. And also it's rewarding to feel like, oh, if I was in my freshman year and I was watching all these videos, I think I would feel validated in feeling stressed and feeling anxious and feeling like I don't know how to manage my time. And so I think knowing that it would have been helpful is motivating to make videos and give advice.
Awesome.
Interesting.
All right, we've got a couple questions in the chat. First one is right back at you, Olivia. Did social and time managing problems shift to academic and studying problems as you became a sophomore, junior, and senior? What are the, I guess, how did the things that you were most concerned about change from your freshman year to now?
I would say junior year was the year that I just kind of loaded a bunch of my classes in there, and that was when I felt the most stressed about schoolwork. And now my stresses are, oh, where am I going to find a job? Where am I going to live? Definitely different than they were freshman year, but every year is every year is going to be a new thing that you're looking forward to, but you're also like stressed about. Sophomore year, first year I moved off campus. Who am I going to live with sophomore year? Where are we going to live? I'm going to have to cook all my own meals now. How am I going to get to the grocery store? Junior year was like, I would say more heavy school load. And then this year is really like, do everything you can in this year. You're leaving. Where are you going to find a job? Everybody's got every year's got their own things.
It's really amazing. Not only is it year to year, but what we found is that there's a sort of a calendar, and the videos, because the student, are aligned with what's going on at different times of the school year. So if you think about, as I mentioned, the first couple of months, a lot of it is managing time, making friends, joining clubs. I didn't get in, this happened to me. It's lots of that sort of early. By the time you're at, you're hitting midterms, it's about studying or finals, like studying tips and hacks and whatever. And then we had a bunch of like videos in the beginning of the second semester was like, okay, here's how you bounce back if your first semester didn't go well. And there was a lot of stuff about that. And then looking for jobs and summer jobs. And should I get a summer job or a summer internship? And does it really matter? And like all these different, should I join this club? Should I join a fraternity? So it's really like there's a natural progression that we see of content, and the content is really timed to what is going on in the students' lives during the school year. And then a lot of the issues that Olivia just mentioned are sort of at the end. We're now at the end of the school year, and it's all about looking at sophomore year and housing and and career and am I in the right major? I don't like any of my classes in my major. What should I do? Like, so it's really interesting how things evolve over the course of the year. Okay. Question from Adrian. What is the difference in likelihood of young men versus young women in opening the text with the videos? Great question. First, let me back up. Going back to the survey results, there was not a difference in stress level or any of the, like, we had a data scientist go and slice and dice the responses. Like, are girls more stressed than boys? Are people at big schools less stressed than people at small schools? Like, it's pervasive, right? Each student may need help in a different area, right? Some students really need help academically, studying, or just time management, others socially. And the variety is there so that there's something for everybody. We don't have any definitive data that says that women click more or less. I think it's really subject specific, and it's specific to that person. And yes, you may have a woman, right, making a video saying, help, I didn't get into the sorority I wanted. But guess what? It's still relevant for the guys who, may not have made it into the fraternity that they wanted. Or, like my daughter wanted to be on the mock trial team and didn't make it. And she was captain of the mock trial team in high school. And that was a big learning experience. Like, it's so... it really is specific to the student and what they're looking for. And the nice thing is, some weeks there may be one video that resonates, and another week it could be six, all five that resonate.
So Lee, it's also worth noting that a lot of what goes into the GapWell guide was coming from the recommendations of our content contributors, of our subscribers. So how Olivia's generation interacts with information is very different than how I do. So, the messaging that comes out each week, it's one short text message with some emojis in it, with headlines. Like, we're trying to get our subscribers to, in their their busy lives, to be like, oh, there's a topic that I'm interested in. Or I really like what Olivia has to say because I can relate to her situation. So, we know which videos are getting the most traffic. We know that because we taught a course last fall where we used the videos as part of the course. We know the content is as well received by young men as it is from young women. I think at this age, first years, let's call them 17, 18, 19-year-olds, we find that women engage in the topics a heck of a lot more, because they're more willing to share about, I'm really excited for college, I'm also really scared, I'm really this, I'm really that. Like, when we've done focus groups with college-bound high school seniors that are male, some of them are like, yeah, whatever, I'll figure it out. I'm not saying they're all that way, but it's like, what we're really trying to do is encourage engagement. Our goal in the GapWell guide is not to get people to watch every single video, but if one of the boys or sons on this call watches Max from Indiana's video about sports betting, which was a really impactful video, and he was talking about it from a male at a large university where sports betting was a big deal in the fraternities and elsewhere, and all the trouble that his friends and classmates got into. Like, that story, for someone who's the parent of young men, that was like, wow, I've never asked my son about this topic. And so, like, there's no guarantee that they'll engage in all the content, but we do everything in our power. And I say in our power, it's like all the advice we're getting from the young adults that are either the people giving the advice or from the subscribers saying, here's what would make this even better for me.
Yeah.
And so rather than trying to force them to do something that, you know, fits a 50-year-old but doesn't fit a 18-year-old, like, we're really have our finger on the pulse of that because of who's helping to drive the product.
And the guys, you know, there is a natural, I mean, anybody who's got kids, and I don't mean to suggest that there's, you know, I know we live in a multi-gender world, and I'm not trying to suggest there's only two genders, but I think the stereotypical perception of boys is, well, they don't need help making friends, and they don't need this, and like, that's the girl. It's not true. It is not true. And we've had guys make videos. In fact, one of our brand ambassadors on the campus in Indiana, he tells a story. He's like, I saw the video about sitting next to, like, go sit next to someone in class. That's how you make a friend. And he's like, that's how I made my friends. And it was, you know, he was vulnerable about it, about that, you know, it was hard for him to make friends, and he didn't feel like he belonged. And then he figured it out. And so the guys need that content. And that's the whole point about not waiting for them to ask, because they'll never ask. My son will never ask for help, right? But if it just shows up on his phone, he'll get it, and then he'll look at it. So, okay. So we are going to send, yes, we're going to, Jen, we're going to send everybody the 10 college conversations. And I think that's it, unless there's any other questions. Cool. Oh, one more question. Bruce.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. I am in a slightly different situation. I'm an Aspire mentor, and I'm working with juniors. And so they're not at the point where they know where they're going. In fact, a lot of them have pretty long lists and have no idea where they're going. And I'm just wondering, I think it's a great idea to hear what older students have to say. And I just wonder, is there any resource to find a compilation of comments from students that are not, you know, sort of censored or edited in any way, that talk about the good news and the bad news about whatever universities might be under consideration? I've seen that. I went to Stanford, and occasionally I see long commentaries from students about this and that and the other thing that they either really like or really don't like. But to me, it seems like it would be helpful to know of a compilation where I could point the kids who are interested in Colorado and Santa Barbara and this and that to sort of compare, because I think that there's a lot of useful information in that kind of, I don't know, gripe session, if you will, that may resonate with kids.
You know what? It's a great question, and we also get questions sometimes, you know, does it matter if my kid goes to a more highly ranked school or a lower ranked school? Like, does it matter if they're at a small private school or a big school? And the school experience, and we are not college advisors. I'll put that out there. It's so personal. And that's why, you know, I had and so it's very difficult to draw. I mean, you can get some general sensibilities, but you have kids who go to the same school, live in the same dorm, and they have wildly different experiences. And as I said at the beginning, like, one of the big questions we asked during that survey was there ever a moment during your first year that you felt like maybe you were at the wrong school? And nationally, it was over 60%. And at small schools, it was even higher. It was about 70%, meaning that, yeah, there's rough times. And as we all know, it's like, when you're having a rough time, you love to tell the world about, you know, how terrible it is. And then everything gets better and you decide, nope, I don't want to transfer. I want to stay right here. And everything's great. And I made my best friend. And I didn't feel this way 2 months ago, but now I feel like this is the greatest place on earth. And so there's so much variability that first year. I don't know to the short question is, I don't know of a site like that. I'm sure it exists. Olivia, I don't know if you know of a site like that, but I would just be cautious, because it's the right school for you, right? What's the right school for you? And that's really the most important part. Olivia, do you know of anything like that? I know that it's like a rate my professors, but almost for like
watch like
universities.
YouTube videos and stuff before my freshman year, but I don't know that they were super helpful. Because like you said, it's just, you know, the people who like want to put themselves on social media and talk about the school. So it's not like a super broad spectrum of students.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce, I think it's a great idea. And the more that you can get juniors in high school to start talking about it, thinking about it, interacting with people. I mean, Olivia, to your point, I mean, how many students go to Oregon?
23,000.
Right. So if you talk to 2 students or you get, 3 posts or YouTube videos, I mean, the sample size at a place like Oregon, I'm sure there's people there that, love every minute of it. And there's people there that claim it's too big, it's too this, it's too that. I mean, it's hard, but I think the more, Bruce, kind of to your point, like we have a good friend whose daughter went to a university and she lasted 2 weeks and she went home and I know the family quite well. And I asked her father the question, but when I asked her the question, like, what would you have done differently knowing what you know now, right? Like going to college, 12 hours from home, lasting 2 weeks, a lot of money down the drain. Her self-confidence was down. She said, I would have thought more about it. And I thought to myself, I wasn't exactly sure what that meant, but she said to me later, she's like, yeah, I just figured once I got there, I'd figure it out. And I'm sure as Olivia would agree, like when you landed on campus, moving from LA to this giant campus, like it must have been a bit of a shock. And maybe we're thinking about it, but like this woman, she hadn't thought about it at all. And it was too much for her. And she really could not find her footing. So if you can get, like Bruce is talking about, you can get juniors talking about it, interacting with people, putting some thought to it. I mean, there's no exact science to this. Even, I'm sure Jennifer would agree. Like there's no, hey, if you just fill out these 4 boxes, it'll tell you what to do. But the more you can get people to interact and say, wow, a big school does sound great because I'm into sports, or you know what, I want a smaller school where I actually know more people when I walk around campus. Like it just depends on the student.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know that it varies by student, but I have seen some sort of consensus things where this university is a very stressful place to be unless you're, a genius.
Yeah.
And right. Some other places are a very stressful place to be if you're not a varsity athlete. So
I definitely think there are trends. There are schools where the Greek system is more prevalent, or where you better be a math and science person or you're going to feel out of place. Like there are those sort of, I say, personality traits of schools, but I think that not every school has such a definitive, and so it's easy to cross something off a list because it's like, no, I don't want to go to Greek, or no, I'm not I don't want to go to Johns Hopkins because I hear it's incredibly intense, or whatever the rumor is. And I think that there are some of those personality traits, but I guess our cautionary tale is that doesn't mean it's not right or wrong for certain students.
Got it. Thank you.
So thank you. Okay. Any other questions before we hang up? Oh, and someone's joining?
I think she got bumped out. She got
bumped out. Okay. Well, we are wrapping up. It's we got 5 minutes over, but we certainly appreciate everybody sticking with us. And Olivia, we appreciate you more than anybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being open and vulnerable. Thank you for sharing your perspectives, and obviously thank you for being a great contributor to the GapWell Guide.
Of course.
All right, and you'll all hear from us. We'll send you the link to the conversations and everything else we discussed. And Lee, thank you for bringing it to a successful close. Jennifer, we really appreciated being invited to speak to your community, and if we can ever be helpful in the future, you know how to reach us.
Yeah, thanks for staying up late for us.
Yes.
Our pleasure.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.